Welcome to the Unsecurity Podcast. Each week, Evan and Brad give an inside look at current information security news, breaches, best practices, and other things you should know to improve your information security. Here are your hosts, FRSecure's Evan Francine and Brad Nye.
All right, it's another Monday morning here at FRSecure Security Studio, world headquarters in, where are we? Minnetonka, Minnesota. For anybody who ever makes it out this way and wants to come and visit. But you know what that means? It's time for another episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. This is episode number 25?
25.
That's like almost a half a year. We haven't missed a single week yet. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to switch that up at some point. It's Monday, April 29th, 2019. And like I said, this is episode 29. I'm Evan Francine. I'm your host for this week. Brad is with me as always. Say hi, Brad.
Hello. I like to mix it up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to follow
totally
your
threw
script.
Me off. I know why. I said, say hi, Brad. And he says, well, hello.
Because I got a full 8 hours of sleep last night because we didn't come in.
You got 8 hours of sleep? What is that like?
It's this.
Actually, I got 9 on Friday and Saturday, and then last night I didn't sleep well. No. But such is the life. All right, but I am actually pretty excited today. Today we have our first dial-in guest, and I don't know if you've ever done podcasting before, meaning listeners. Trying to figure out how to do dial-in is a new thing for us, so we got a little messed up, but I think we got it now. If there's quality issues, cut us a little bit of slack maybe, and give us some tips as opposed to just maybe ripping us. But I am pumped today because today is our first dial-in guest. We have with us today is Christophe Foulon. Welcome, Christophe.
Hello, everyone.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Did I say your last name right?
Yes, surprisingly.
People butcher that one?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. We met on LinkedIn, and there was somebody who texted me or messaged me this weekend and said that he was the one that introduced you to us. Do you remember who that is? I can't remember his name.
Yes, I do recall it.
Because we should give him a shout out. I can't remember his name though. Son of a gun. All right, hold on. I have a computer.
It is Jason Dance.
Yes, Jason Dance. He's given some good input to us, since we started the podcast. Just kind of giving us, actually, it was his idea to do one of our shows on, what the heck was it? Being healthy, I think, in information security. He gave us some good tips on that. So thank you, Jason, for introducing us.
Yeah, he always sends me interesting articles and comments on some of the articles that I post. So, we've been going back and forth for a while.
Well, and that's one of the things that I'm very impressed with. We were talking just before we started the show with you, is you're active, man. I mean, I see stories from you coming all the time, and you were just telling me this weekend you went to B-Sides in DC, one of the ones. I don't know. You tell it.
Besides Charm, and it's in Baltimore. But there's 3 around the DC area. There's B-Sides DC in DC. B-Sides Charm in Baltimore, and then B-Sides Nova in Northern Virginia. But since the area is so small, you could probably get to all of them within an hour and a half drive, so not too bad.
Wow. Yeah, and I thought I was busy, but you must be pretty busy.
Yeah, but I use technology to help me. So, for example, for my social media postings, I use a service called Buffer, which when I find useful articles throughout the day, I just post it to that, and then I can set predefined times to have that publish it for me on both my LinkedIn and my Twitter.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I use Buffer too, not as well as you. I think you mentioned using technology. I think the older I get, the more I get disconnected from technology. But Buffer I use, I don't know, what day are we on? 22 of the 100 Days of Truth. So I just queue those up on Sundays. So every morning at 8 a.m., it's another truth that goes out on my LinkedIn and Twitter. Are you pretty active on Twitter too?
Yeah, I mean, I post to both, and then I respond on both. LinkedIn's more the professional side, and then a little more personality comes out on Twitter, but still on the professional side.
And Brad, you're not as socially media.
No,
it's because I work you too hard, I think.
That's it. I get home and I'm done. I need to do something with Buffer or something because I see the articles and then I just don't think to post it.
Yeah, I think you have to get into a habit.
Yeah.
Well, that episode 16 when your wife, me and my wife were here, one of the comments my wife gave to me was, Brad really seems like he's got his life in balance. Hint. Okay.
Although I will say, I'm glad you mentioned that. My wife shared a picture of that your wife posted of the flowers, and I was like, "Mm-hmm."
Oh, my wife posted pictures. I sent her flowers.
You sent her flowers. I got grief that you were ahead of me on that one.
Yeah, back at you. Anyway, sorry, Christophe. We're just that's a little spat.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I was at B-Side Charm, and my wife came up for one of the nights. My son stayed in the hotel, and I got to see them overnight during the conference, and then I went back the next day and kept going, and then left a little bit early on the last day to get back home to them. So, yeah, I try as well to keep everything balanced as much as one can.
Good for you.
Yeah. It's easy to get sucked in.
Yeah. I'd much rather have a happy marriage and home life and be a little less security than the other way around. Be a awesome expert at everything security and be alone. So anyway, Christophe, so you have this passion for information security. Tell me what got you into it and when?
I would say it started probably around 2007 formally. I was in a help desk role, and I just started seeing how insecure a lot of people were acting, specifically at jobs. And then I was like, well, if you're doing that here, you're probably doing that at home. So I started sharing helpful tips here and there, and everyone seemed to love it. And I'm like, wow, this is nice to be able to share this information with other people. And then I started just going down the route, getting my certifications, heading down that route, staying mostly on the IT side till about 2012. Then I started to interject myself into whatever security thing I could, because I never had a formal title until recently of doing something in security, but I was always trying to be secure wherever I can, share security tips, and then have the business think about doing things securely, because most of the times they were always focused on availability.
Right. Yeah, I get that. So you mentioned, starting off on the help desk. I think I think you and I had a conversation last week or the week before. I think that's such a great place for people to start their information security careers, because you learn so much about different technologies and you learn so much about people. So would you suggest that's a great place for people to start if you're not in this industry?
It's an amazing place to start. First of all, you get to learn the foundations of computer systems, networking, how users react or interact with systems. And if you know those things, you can come up with ways to mitigate what you're doing, educate them on better ways to do it, or even think of how they would react to something before the system is deployed, so you can deploy controls and mitigations ahead of time to try to limit the effects.
Right. So well, crap, I had a question. I totally forgot what I was going to say. Help desk. Yeah, I had flashbacks when he said help desk.
And I know, right? It's funny how that's similar to how I got into it. I was doing systems admin, and it was right around that same time, and 2008, 2009, and realizing, I've been doing security this whole time without that title, without realizing it. And
yeah,
it seems like that's a very common way for people to get in. And
Yeah.
kind of without realizing it.
Right. And we do our CISSP mentor program. And I know one of the things that a lot of students have concerns about is after they pass their exam, do they have the prerequisite experience?
Right.
And a lot of times we can find it because you've been doing it without you even knowing you were doing it.
Yep. Yeah. I filled mine out. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to have, cause I didn't have the title.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, you've got, 12 years in this and 8 years in this. And
yeah.
All right, I'm safe.
Yeah, it fits. So, is there one of the things you said too, Christophe, that resonates with me is you said that these people, that you're helping on the help desk are the same people that are at home. So they're using the same habits, good or bad, in both places, right?
Yeah, definitely. And some of the things that I've learned along the way is rather than when I was doing security awareness training, rather than teaching them to be secure at work, I said, okay, let's take a step away from work. Let's forget that we're here. Now let's think about you using your Gmail account. Think about what's in your Gmail account, what's connected to your Gmail account. And if you use the same password for your Gmail account on your Facebook account or for the Baskin-Robbins ice cream account that you have, and someone hacks into Baskin-Robbins, now they could possibly hack into your Gmail. What's connected to that? Your banking, your taxes, all these things. And then right there, the concept of password reuse hits them. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you can dive into different concepts like using multi-factor. For most of them, you start off with just SMS notifications or just using the SMS pins that you might get from providers, which is better than nothing. We're not going to get everyone to a YubiKey straight off the bat, but at least if you could do something additionally, it reduces the attack surface drastically.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that's interesting is it's rare, I think, to see somebody in information security with credibility, I might add, kind of grow so fast. Meaning, you haven't been in this industry I've been in this industry for, seems like forever. And I go, kind of at my pace, even though I work my tail off all the time. But to see somebody, I'm really impressed with somebody who hasn't been in this industry for a super long period of time, long enough, right? You have the experience for sure. Mm-hmm. But to just be so, kind of passionate about it and getting out there and getting the word out. What is it that's driving you? Do you have a mission? Something that you're trying to, that gets you up every morning, I guess. It's
fun. I like helping people.
Yeah.
For example, I love learning. So one of the things that I do with my long commute, I have a closer to our commute, listen to podcasts. On my LinkedIn page, I have a list with 40, 50 different podcasts that I've come across the years, and I listen to most of them, surprisingly. But to cram in all that information, I listen at 2-speed. So I'm always trying to learn, always trying to keep up with what's happening. It's a ever-evolving industry, and I know that not everyone else can do that. So I try to impart knowledge, share what I know with others in the community, help mentor those that are coming in, ensure as to where they fit in this industry, and I talk to them about transferable skills and try to find out what they like, what drives them, and then show them that there's a varied path to coming into this field, and it's still such a novice field as well that you can create your own path. There's people coming in from the creative side that are helping us with the marketing aspects or the awareness aspects, or educators that need to help teach, and whether it's teaching developers or teaching users or teaching business. There's so many different things to do. So I just kind of help show everyone that's interested some of the paths that are available to them.
That's cool. That's admirable.
I will say your commute is why I don't miss the DC area and why I left.
Brad's from that area.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, DC is about the same commute I had in South Florida, which was about the same. It was just I guess all the areas I've lived in just had a lot of traffic. But yeah, I'm used to it, I guess.
Yeah, we're sort of spoiled out here in Minnesota. I mean, we complain about a 10-minute delay.
I laugh at the people here complaining about traffic.
Well, I drive a big pickup truck, man. I'm wasting a lot of gas, and it irritates me.
But you guys get like 2 feet of snow on the average, right?
Oh, God. Yeah.
I think this year we got 4.5 feet of snow in February.
Yeah, it was
pretty bad.
A bad winter. I didn't, and it still kind of like wants to not let go.
It just went south of us this weekend.
Yeah, we were supposed to potentially get some slush on Sunday.
Yeah.
Ugh.
A couple of the security people I follow, like Ian Coldwater and Steve Buchanan, that I've worked with in the past, live in that area, and just seeing some of the snow reports, I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll stay in DC. It's kind of temperate.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in South Florida, you mentioned that. I mean, in February, yeah, we should open an office there, maybe. You mentioned Ian. That's another person that just rose, kind of fast and I love that because we need more. And I like Ian Goldwater.
Yeah.
Because of the there's no ego. Mm-hmm. I just there's so many people in our industry that have been so ingrained in this industry for so long that I think they just have an ego that sort of surpasses their usefulness. If that makes any sense.
No, it definitely does. But that's the other thing about this industry. It's ever changing. So
right.
Containers and Kubernetes, that's a newish technology within the area. So you'll find people that fall in with it at the beginning and then they master it quickly. And there's not many of us out there who would be able to master that technology. So everyone tends to look up to them. And if you're sharing the information and being kind and being nice to the rest of the community, they do tend to rise.
Yeah, and I love that. That's I love supporting the information security people in our industry who are providing value, whose heart is in the right place, and they do so without being a jerk to people who don't get it. And that's that's you, that's Ian. Hopefully, that's me. I mean, I don't want to be a jerk. Brad, you.
I don't.
Brad.
I've heard really good things about your CISSP mentorship program.
You.
So you're doing good work yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I am not a jerk.
I had to push my button. I found a new button on our mixer.
Yeah, this is the new button.
It's your imposter syndrome kicking in a little bit there.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
See?
I've heard that.
We talked about that a little bit.
We did.
A couple weeks ago, maybe?
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that again sometime.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things, so you mentioned, Christophe, about just your passion for helping people get into the industry. And once they get into this industry, sort of helping them navigate their way. And one of the things that you do is the Breaking into Cybersecurity podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I started the podcast with a recruiter partner of mine, Renee Small, also in the DC area, and we connected on LinkedIn. We were just happened to be on the same threads and responding to the same types of questions all the time as to how to break in. Advice for what they need to do, how they could get in, what they could do. And the two of us just teamed up and said, okay, well, let's interview individuals that have come into the cybersecurity field within the past 5 years, because we wanted to make it relevant. Nothing against you, Evan, but you joined a long time ago and you joined a different way.
I'm old.
So I didn't want to say the word, but
that's all right. I feel it now.
So we wanted relevant advice for those that had come in and what they did and how they did it. And it's one thing to hear it from someone that's already in for a while and they could go, oh yeah, well, that's not relevant anymore. But if you hear it straight from the mouth of someone that just did it, and you can reach out to them and ask them more questions. Sometimes it's a little more resounding. So that was the premise behind creating the podcast. And yeah, we're on episode 26 now, so about the same length as you guys.
Awesome. And is that a weekly podcast, monthly?
We try to do it weekly, provided that scheduling and guest availability goes. But we've missed a couple of weeks. I think we started last August.
Okay.
Missed a couple, but yeah, right now we're booked out through June for guests. So yeah, we have a couple lined up.
Awesome.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things so for the listeners, it's the Breaking into Cybersecurity podcast, and you can get that on Crowdcast. And I think it's one of the. So tonight we have class again for the CSSP mentor program, which is, I think, comprised of, what would you say, maybe 3/4 of the people there are trying to break into this industry. Would you say?
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
Okay, so I think they could really benefit from, knowing about your podcast. Yeah. So we'll make it known to the students tonight. Yeah,
and it's thanks to Crowdcast, it's available via the web or via mobile app for listening on the go.
That's cool. Very cool. All right. Well, we need more people, in our industry. And, there's lots of debate on, how bad the numbers actually are, whether it's 2.5, 3.5, or however many million short we are. The point is there's plenty of opportunity.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of opportunity. And so the other part of it that I try to work with businesses as well is when you're recruiting individuals to think of how they're recruiting, how they're writing the job recs. Do they really need all these certifications on there, or did someone in HR just decide to put that in there? Because especially as you're trying to recruit diverse and inclusive populations, if they don't feel like they meet 100% of the requirements, they won't apply. Whereas some guys with ego will meet 3 things on there and go, hey, why not? Give it a shot.
Yeah. There's some people that they have the same letters in their name as the certification, so that's close enough.
Right.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Well, and one of the recipes that's really worked well for us here, at FRSecure and Security Studio is hiring for the intangibles. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're the things that we can't teach. I can't teach you to be a good person. I can't teach you to be honest and, full of integrity.
All those things.
Curious.
Because we can teach security stuff. I mean, there are books, there are classes, there's plenty of mentorship opportunity, there's internships. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to teach you security stuff. So we end up actually growing a lot of our talent here. Yeah. And it's worked well for us.
We got 2 associate level that didn't have a whole lot of experience, and it's rewarding to see them have those aha moments and start to get it and build that confidence. So.
Yeah, and I think when you grow your talent, you also gain loyalty that way, because they don't feel like you're just there to do a particular piece of the workload, whereas they know you're going to grow, they're going to have different experiences, and they'll let you try different things. Whereas if you come in meeting all these exact requirements, either that's all you want to do. Once you've done doing that, you're going to leave. Or if you're not doing exactly that because that's where you specifically want to be, then you're going to leave as well.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Well, in episode 20, one of the things that we covered on the Unsecurity podcast was, about being healthy. And we touched on it just a little bit when we started our conversation. Honestly, I work too much. I mean, I think everybody would agree. But, you mentioned one of the tools that you use. You leverage technology to get the word out, with, I can't remember the name of the...
Buffer.
Yeah. But then you're also, volunteering a lot, I see. You do, make it to conferences to spread the word. You do the podcast. Do you have any tips for people in this industry once they get in and things go fast. What tips do you have maybe to share about living healthy?
I would just say try to find an area that you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about it, it's not as much of a grind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it will take a lot of your time, but you won't be as burnt out about it. I know I've been in roles where it's just been too much, and even though I'm only working an 8-hour day, I would get home and feel exhausted. And then there's other roles where I work a lot longer and I'm just as energetic at the end of the day, because I feel like I'm contributing positively to the environment and I'm doing good things, and I don't feel as bad. Outside of that, like you mentioned, ensuring that you can try to spend time with your family, and have my wife nagging me, making sure I do spend time with the family. So I have that reminder here and there as well. So it's just trying my best to do what I can. Good.
Yeah, I think for me, it comes down to my support. If I didn't have my wife and my family, I'd be collecting dust behind a keyboard somewhere, because she does keep me honest. Mm-hmm. She will nag me a little bit, and it's not nagging. It's a loving, like, urging that, hey, it's probably good for your health and good for relationships if you step away for a minute or two. And so I give her a minute or two, and then I get back to work. No,
yeah,
just kidding.
I was getting a little bit with the mentor program where you're at the office more than you were at home. Mm-hmm. Like, okay. So, yeah, I ended up being able to take off an hour and a half early on Friday.
Nice.
So,
well, and we encourage that here.
Yeah.
Truly, I think it helps when your employer, I hope it helps, when your employer really encourages it. You have to keep it in balance. Yeah. It's even part of one of our core values: work hard, play hard.
Right. Yeah. Working for somebody who is a seat watcher is just soul crushing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Some of the other things that I do is I try to schedule extra activities within my lunchtime. So that's why my podcast is at noon, because I started it with an employer that kind of did watch when I was doing things. So I've just got in the habit of doing extra activities like that around noon. So it wasn't an issue because this was my lunchtime. So I wasn't not being productive at the time.
Yeah. Yep. I can see that. Well, hopefully, and the thing is within our industry, being that there is so much opportunity, if there's an employer you're working for that it's not a healthy work environment, or it doesn't fit with your own balance, because I think everybody's balance is different. My balance is different than Brad's balance. It doesn't mean mine's better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
And, if culture, if balance doesn't fit, then go find another job, because there are other opportunities out there. And having the confidence in yourself to do that, because it's just not worth it. It's not worth killing yourself or your personal life for a job.
Right. Yeah.
That's actually where I started using Buffer, because I was working for an employer at the time, and you're like, oh, he's posting too much on social media, and I'm like, but I'm not posting. Buffer's posting, and they didn't believe me. So at one point, I adjusted the times to look here. It's starting at 9, then it posts during the lunch hour, then it posts after work. I'm like, that's the most modification I'm going to do, because to a certain point, I don't want them my social life that much. I'm sure they can have code of conducts where I'm not going to represent them in a negative manner just by working for them, but I'm still going to share useful information, and I'm not going to let them control that aspect of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the thing too, where they didn't believe you. It's so unhealthy when an employer doesn't trust you, right? We're adults in most cases. I don't think there's any child labor for security yet, is there?
Yeah.
We are trying to teach kids young, but we have boundaries. All right. Were you going to say something, Brad? You look like you wanted to say something. You were breathing. No.
No.
All right. Because sometimes I cut Brad off too because I talk too much, but that's me. Any kind of cool things that you're working on now?
No, so I just finished up Charm. I submitted a talk for DC, so seeing if that will come through. It'll be a similar talk that I did at B-Sides Nova, which was based on cyber resiliency, and learned a couple of things from the last talk, learned a couple of things along the way that I could spice up the talk and make a difference. But it's more of a one-on-one type talk to show businesses and IT people that the two really do interact, and just thinking of security for security's sake, but not taking the business into consideration is definitely the wrong approach. So when you approach cyber resiliency, you have to think of how business resiliency interacts with it.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to be speaking at Secure 360 in 2 weeks, the 15th?
2 weeks, yeah.
And it's on, DR doesn't have to be debilitating, and it's almost the same thing. How do we get an IT person? How do you get the business buy-in? How do you make a successful DR program? What's included in it? Because, you can't do it without the business's buy-in and support.
Right. Yeah. Are you speaking the day?
Same day.
We're both speaking the same day then?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Are we competing for audience?
No. I'm at 10, and I think you're 3 or 4.
I'm an afternoon.
You're in the afternoon.
All right. Well, that'll be fun. I don't know what I'm talking about yet. Well, I'll be in next week in Los Angeles, something.
No, it's
in Anaheim.
The same week. It's like the
ISACA?
12th or 13th.
Oh, that's...
And then you're flying back and speaking the 15th.
Oh.
They asked me if I could do it, and I was like, if you need.
Yeah.
And then you took the bullet.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, that'll be fun. Well, I'm talking about, so on Friday I spoke about to the Cloud Security Alliance, third-party information security risk management. I'm a literal guy, so I use the big words. Yeah, I'm going to use the whole words, like third-party information security risk management. That's what it is. Like vendor risk management, a lot of people call it VRM.
Right.
That's bigger, right? Usually third-party information security risk management fits within vendor risk management. But anyways, Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, who wants to talk about third-party information security risk management?
Very lively crowd.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, God. So I had to do 3 dad jokes to get through that one. To keep people awake. I'm like, all right. Anyway.
Well, that's one of the cool things about like the B-Sides conferences is that your audience wants to be there. It's not like you're being paid by their employer or forced by the employer to go there.
That's true.
Your audience makes the whole difference, and your energy as well.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned you did a talk at B-Sides Nova. Is there a place where people can get a copy of that? Was it recorded or anything?
Yeah, I can send you the link for the show notes.
Yeah, because I'll post it in the show notes, kind of an errata. Is that what they call that when you add something on at the end? ERRAT, whatever.
It's a big word.
It is a big word. But I don't know if you knew this. I'm an author, so I'm allowed to use big words now.
You're expected. Prior
to that, no big words. All right. Well, good. Yeah, because I'll post that because, one, I'd like to definitely see it. And I'll post a link, some of the links too, because I want people to be able to find you. Because we believe, I do, and I'm sure Brad does too. I believe in your mission. I'd like to see it, whatever I can do to help. Mm-hmm. We need more of that in our industry. Well, one of the things that you posted last week, which caught my eye, because anything with password in it catches my eye, because it's like, what are we talking about now? So Microsoft released, on their security guidance blog, an article titled "Security Baseline and Draft" for Windows 10 version 1903 and Windows Server version 1903. And in the article written by Aaron Margosis, who I had never heard of until then, but he writes how Microsoft is planning to drop the password expiration policies out of their security guidance and maybe even out of Windows altogether. So immediately, I am a kind of more of an old school security person. I knew the reason why we had those things. We had those password policies for a reason. It wasn't just because we like making people's lives difficult.
Well, actually, when you talk to the individual that created the original NIST guidance, he admits that it was just because he thought it was the right thing to do, but they had no studies to show that it was actually helpful.
Oh, right. So that it wasn't helpful to have the password expiration?
Exactly. Because it caused users to do all the same things that we harped them not to do. Create simple passwords, add sequential numbers on them, add predictable symbols on them, write them down, things like that. That initially, when he created the guidance, they had no research showing that if you had a password out for a long time, that it had some of the issues, because back then you didn't have the breaches that you do today.
Right.
So it might have changed if he created them later in life, but back then he said, no, I just made it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the issue I have with the removing password expiration policies is because people will still choose. So the only reason why we would ever have it is if there was reason to believe, or a likelihood had increased, that the password had been compromised.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, meaning I'd given it to somebody, I reused it somewhere else where there was a breach and the password was gotten, that way or something. Without a password expiration, then that password is still good. And it will remain that way until somebody changes it.
Yeah, and so NIST still has that guidance that if there is evidence of compromise, that it should be changed.
Yeah, but how would you know?
Well, you could utilize threat intelligence. You can have these monitoring the dark web. You can use things like I've been pwned from Troy hash passwords that you can scan your passwords against to see if you have passwords within your AD that are tied to those.
But still, human behavior is people still share passwords. I mean, my wife wants to give me her password all the time to things,
I think the other issue is yes, you can do those things, but we're seeing most companies don't, or can't, or don't implement them correctly. So I think it becomes...
more sophisticated security programs might have that. But even some of the most sophisticated ones we've seen are terrible at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the issue... I've been going for passphrases. I've got things going back to 2011 at previous jobs where I was like, we got to go to this. Here's how you do it. So this is something I've been on for a while. But it still comes down to how long are you willing to be open to a compromised password. If you have multi-factor enabled, sure, then absolutely you can go much longer or indefinitely. But without those additional controls in place...
Yeah. I mean, I can see where they're going, too.
Yes.
I think it's...
and now you have conditional access that you can add as an additional layer to even restrict it down further. So if you're not coming from a certain IP, if you don't have that factor, then you don't even get an attempt at it.
Well, assuming people put that in, though.
And that's the problem.
I mean, when at least password expiration policies, I would say, more than half of the organizations, have that or some semblance of it probably configured. The organizations, if you think just in our own experience, that have any semblance of a threat intelligence capability, at least an actionable one, less than 5% maybe. So I think, this probably works really well for organizations that have a pretty sophisticated information security program where they've got threat intelligence capabilities. They'll know with some amount of certainty whether a password has been compromised somewhere. Mm-hmm. But I think for the vast majority, the other, 80, 90% of organizations, they're going to take this guidance and say, oh, we can turn off password.
Right. That's my concern is exactly. You've got maybe the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 that could do this, but what about all the small, medium, mid-sized companies that have, one person or have an MSP as their only source of anything around it, and they're going, oh, well, I don't have to have password expiration anymore.
Well, that's one of the challenges, too, with just security in general is we, for some reason, tend to forget that it's not a one-size-fits-all. Right.
Yeah.
So you turning off password expiration in your environment might make perfect sense. In mine, never.
Right.
And so if you have this just kind of wholesale guidance, that can get dangerous.
Yeah, and that's where the education comes in. And I think just by them setting it as part of their security baseline, there's a lot of other insecure things that are in baseline configurations for Windows that, as most sysadmins turn on their systems, they change. But like disabling services that they don't use, that's where we come in to help educate the business that this should be something that they should do. But in regards to passwords and helping set better password hygiene, one of the tools that I use is 1Password, and its subscription service can be for individuals, for families, for businesses. And when you do get their subscription, it does have that monitoring of Troy Hunt's database, and it can tell you when you log in to go get your password, which hopefully you're using unique passwords for all your web. If not, it would say, hey, these are where all your shared passwords are, and it'll tell you every single site that you're using the same password on within that password manager. And then they'll also tell you, hey, these sites have been recently breached. There's no evidence that your password has been breached, but you might want to change it. And even we have seen that this username and password combination has been found within breach details. You might want to change it.
Sure. Well, and I think, so, I always think, we sort of started, some of this discussion with, studies and in science and, those things. And I wonder what percentage of passwords that have been compromised threat intelligence services even know about.
It's only what's going to be posted, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things I know in our industry just over the years is how data poor we still are, because people don't like to share, obviously, their dirty laundry. So that, but again, I'm not against it. I think in certain environments, it makes a lot of sense, to reduce our password requirements. Certainly if I've got multi-factor everywhere, which would be awesome, then, it's even more of a reason that I don't need to have this control. But one of the things that I fear is, I think there's probably more than half of the businesses or environments need it still. They as a control, and they're going to have a lot of consultants out there who are going to be saying, hey, you don't need password expiration anymore. And then you're also going to have a lot of clients saying, hey, we just read the guidance from Microsoft or read the guidance from NIST. We don't need password expiration anymore. So we want you to take that away from our audit finding or our assessment finding.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, but you got to have these other controls in place that you don't.
And, there is some good stuff in there, right?
Oh, for sure.
How to make it longer is stronger, things like that. It's funny, I'm doing the Wayzata Compass mentor program with a high school student for Christophe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we have to do is a shared teaching. Mm-hmm. And he picked passwords. Yeah. So we put together a slide deck on how do you create a strong password, showing, spring 2018 is compliant with your password policy, but it's not a secure password, which, by the way, Christophe, you'll get a kick out of this. We do a training around that with companies, and after one, I had somebody actually come up and say, "So if my password was on the screen, I should be changing it." I was like, "Oh, good." Yes. But I know there's easy ways to make it stronger. People don't realize using proper grammar, even if you use spaces and commas and periods or whatever punctuation, that's a really easy way you can put in, to be or not to be with commas in it. There's easy ways to remember that stuff.
Right.
And they just don't get that.
And then in addition to that, if you're using a unique word for each site that you use, even if you don't change it, you limit your attack vector. Because if you're using a unique password, only that one password is then affected.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons, and I think it's definitely, it's worthy of a much longer debate, because I would see it working in some places like here, potentially. Well, even here, we're a security consulting company, and there's certain people here that I would never trust to not have your password change. And me being, me, and you being you, I don't mind that my password expires every so often.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, you give it. Plus I have a nice warning because Microsoft's so nice to me. They say, hey, you got, a week. Now you got 2 days.
Well,
now you got tomorrow.
That's because you probably have great people that have configured that warning or tested and verified that warning works. I've worked in some organizations where that warning doesn't work, or it comes up one day before, or it comes up that day, and then you're like, okay, let me X that out. I'm in the middle of preparing a presentation right now, and then they lock their machine, or in the middle of the presentation, like, why doesn't this PowerPoint want to work? Well, it was stored on a network drive, and you just got locked out from the network.
We call that justice. All right. Well, good stuff. And and like I said, I think, I like the difference. I'm a big fan of different perspectives, and different opinions. And this is one, I think, the password debate has gone on since forever, since we first had passwords. So I always appreciate it. Well, we've got some news things, and then we got about 8 minutes left because, I don't know, Christophe, you probably have things to do today. I don't. I'm kind of the boss, so I can do whatever. No, I actually do.
Yeah, you have that liberty.
Yeah. Well, but you realize that, one of the things when I became this was, before I became this, was like, oh, it's going to be so awesome. You have so much freedom. You're going to call the shots. You'd be the man in charge.
It's just totally different responsibilities.
Holy buckets, was I wrong. It's, there's no free, I don't control anything.
Right.
I don't control my schedule. I don't control nothing anyway. That was a little bit of a complaint. All right. So first news, Facebook, this was in the news last week. Big fine, $5 billion. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of zeros.
I don't think that there was a fine yet. I think what the news
you're
was
right.
reporting was that they disclosed in their financial disclosure documents that they were preparing for a fine, and they were preparing to put aside up to $5 billion on the side. And I listened to CyberWire and some other security podcasts. And then in addition to that, they were expecting another $3 million from a separate fine, possibly from Europe, for the Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's $5 billion. What do they have in cash? Like $25 billion?
It's a drop in the bucket for them, but their stocks went up, I think, because their investors at least see them being prepared for it, that they're not too worried. But when you think of all the privacy things that they've done, I would hope that more people have been outraged, because they've said, oh, we're going to work on it, and they haven't. I think because they have that all that extra cash that they could just drop on fines and just keep on going.
Yeah, I saw something. The $5 billion was like 5% of their projected profit for the year or something.
Yeah,
like 5%.
Well, and I'm skeptical, because I don't know. I've seen so many times when big companies have said they take these things seriously and they're going to change their ways and they're going to, they take privacy real seriously, but they don't.
When they say they take it seriously, it's usually when they don't.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Or that's when the regulators are looking at them and scrutinizing everything they say.
Yeah. So I'm not a big... I mean, I like Facebook for what it does in terms of some things, right? But just like any technology, it's got a healthy side and a really ugly side. And the ugly side's ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the ugly side, I saw you posted the article about Brian Krebs doxing a security researcher.
Yeah, it caused a bunch of drama.
Yeah, he does a lot of good work, but I think this is where one of the times he's crossed the line.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree too. But, you have to take into, I think, the full body of work. Yeah. I mean, we all make mistakes. And the fact that Brian deleted it afterwards shows that there's probably some regret for having done it. But what was done is done. I think in our industry, sometimes it's hard to forgive people for making a mistake. I don't think he would do it again.
He's done a couple of things in the past where he'd posted some like CVs of people that had left really negative, nasty reviews of his book. Or
Has he really?
Yeah, I did some digging because I was surprised by this. But I mean, given how public he is and how many just cheap shots he has to be taking on, I can understand how you could just be like, enough and kind of go off. But flip side is you're a public persona. You just can't do that. Kind
of comes to the territory, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then he also forgets that the internet doesn't forget, and you have web archives, and you have services that are taking screenshots of everything that goes online, and those are harder to scrub.
Yeah. One thing real quick, you had a couple other articles, but one thing I wanted to talk about that I saw this weekend was with Slack. Did you see in their IPO posting that they think they're a target for organized crime and nation-state hacking, and they don't have end-to-end encryption?
Right. Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't know what to say.
How many
companies use Slack?
Yeah, how many confidential conversations? Yeah.
And you can transfer files. And
yeah,
you name it.
Oof.
Well, let's hope. God, I don't know. I wasn't prepared to talk about that one right now.
I know. I just saw it this weekend.
I don't know how in something like that you would not build end-to-end encryption into
it.
Right. And the fact that we find out about it now. I feel a little guilty because we use Slack,
right?
And we didn't vet that. We
totally missed it.
I know.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot in the security community are going to be reeling from that one, especially when they're like, "Oh yeah, we use Signal, and as much as we don't want to use WhatsApp, at least it's a good alternative because it does provide that encryption." And then they gave Skype a hard time when they weren't doing it. But yeah.
I feel kind of guilty that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh well, can't know everything. Two other things, and we'll just. So one was just the Nigerian ISP accidentally hijacked the internet. That was interesting. It was, it is what it is. But the other one, I think it's more relevant to, you, Christophe, to me, to us is. Cybersecurity job openings boom, so they're hiring, and the pool of U.S. job seekers is shrinking. So the gap is widening. What were your thoughts on that?
I think it comes back to that miscommunication that we kind of talked about earlier, where on one side of the house you have these long lists of job requirements that organizations are asking for, or you're expecting to have talent that's 100% able to complete the task that they need to get done. And then you have new individuals that are coming into the field, or individuals that have been within their role for 3 to 5 years that haven't had the opportunity to learn of the new things that are coming along. So then they become stagnant within the industry, and it makes it hard to catch back up.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it, because I've heard both sides of this too. I've heard from people who are trying to get into this industry who can't get hired. And so they're like, well, there's no way that there's a job shortage because I've been trying to get in. But I think like you're saying too, the expectations are unrealistic for the hiring managers. I mean, you're trying to hire somebody who, and then you want to pay them
right
half the cost. I mean, if you did actually find a unicorn that looked like that, it's going to cost you twice as much as what you're willing to pay because they're in high demand, right?
Exactly. I mean, kind of like CISOs. You have a CISO that gets fired from one role or let go from one role because they had a breach, which may or may not have been in their control, and they'll walk across the street and they'll get a job before the day is done.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. All right. Well, this kind of brings us to the end. I could seriously, Christophe, we could have doubled the time on this. It really is fun talking to you. I like your perspective. I like your take on things. And I like how we don't agree 100% on everything, because that's what's beautiful about our industry is this diversity, this different perspectives. So I really appreciate you coming on today. Hopefully we didn't run over too late and you're not going to miss a meeting or anything.
No, I have people coming in the conference room, so I gotta
Okay.
gotta go right now. But thank you so much for having me on, and I'd love to come back sometime in the future.
Yes. Let's keep it going. Thank you, Christophe. Take care. Have a great week.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. All right. So, what did you think?
That's good.
Isn't he a cool guy?
Yeah, definitely in the same vein as what we're doing. Just a little bit of a different perspective, and again, that's what you want. You don't want all yes men. You want that variety to be able to. Yeah,
and for a guy with the number of years of experience that he has, I mean, his experience far exceeds the number of years.
Right.
I mean, because I think he's so passionate. He learns so much.
Crammed a lot in.
Yeah, and what he says is credible.
Yeah.
I love it. So that was really cool. All right, well, that was a full show. And again, special thanks to Christophe for visiting. He gave an hour of his day to sit and talk to a couple of yahoos like me and you. Are we yahoos?
Probably.
Yahoo had
Depend on who you ask.
Yahoo had a big breach. Let's not call ourselves yahoos.
No, that's true.
We'll have to call ourselves something else. Don't forget, you can follow me or Brad on Twitter. My handle, do you call it handle? My Twitter handle is @EvanFrancine, EvanFrancen. And Brad's is @BradNigh, BradNigh. Also, email us on the show. Let us know what you'd like to see more of. If you liked having Christophe on, let us know so we can get more guests like that. Unsecurity@protonmail.com is how you can get a hold of us. And we'll be posting some things on the show notes page on how to follow Christophe and see what he's got going on. That's it. Right?
That's it.
All right. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. We value our listeners and would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback by emailing us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. That's unsecurity@protonmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week to hear the latest insights from Brad and Evan.